Namrata, Sudeep here.
Hi.
Hey, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Yes. So I guess Harry has covered most of the questions for sure. Anyways, you answered about essays. So essay preparation as such, like you spoke about answering, but preparation as such, what is that special thing, extra effort that we need to put for essay as
Okay,
such?
so before answering that, how well are you with typing? Because a lot of times I've heard that people are not very comfortable with typing.
Uh, I can say intermediate. I've been working for a very long time now in corporate,
So
so
you
yeah,
could be like
yeah,
comfortable typing, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't think that's an issue. So what I feel is maybe comprehension. When you comprehend the essay, you know that what they're actually leaning towards. So most of the times, what has happened with me is that as and when I start reading the essay, I kind of have a hint of what are they going to ask me, and by the time I reach down, I already have an answer building up in my head that okay, fine, if they're going to ask this, I already have this thought in my mind. And your answer should be more of not just giving the answer for the sake of giving the answer, giving a solution based answer, because I think that's what they're looking for. Are you really able to give them the solution, or are you just going to blurt out the data, what they're asking you to do? So there might be, so in part one I had to make a performer for one of my question, and that was it, that I didn't have to really break my head in giving a solution. There might be questions like that also, but most of the time the answers are very solution based. So when I say solution based, I don't just try, I'm just not saying that just give answer for the sake of it, but give them what they can do to improve. Tell them what they can actually do. So suggest them ideas. Maybe if there's a performance issue in the organization, give them that, what, we can introduce this KPI. Maybe we can introduce this corporate governance metrics, or we can introduce a new team community we can build up. So give them solution, give them ideas that this and this we can do. Give them a very what consulting is, right? They give you ideas, but they don't give you exactly what you have to do. So consult them rather than just blurting out data. Your tech, that's what I said while answering essay, your technical has to be very strong. You have to write that for sure. That is the first thing that you need to satisfy. And the second thing is solution. So maybe if you're feeling that you're not comfortable in essay, you're not satisfied is what you're trying to say, right? You don't know how to go about it. Try and do this.
Yeah, I think so. Vedant has got a question. Vedant, you can unmute and you can ask.
Yes. Hi, Namrata. Congratulations for
Hi, thank you.
clearing the exam. Yeah, so I wanted to ask that as you suggested throughout whatever you spoke, I have followed most of them, but I just wanted to know how would you approach solving questions? Like, what is your psychology? Is it to test that how much you have understood, or is it to learn the things that you have just read in the books, like the application of it?
I feel it's a combination of both, right? You are not giving the exam to learn, but you're actually giving the exam to demonstrate what you've learned. So if you know the concepts well, it's very conceptual, honestly speaking. If you know the concepts, you know the questions. And if you don't know the concepts, and if you get the answers right, maybe somewhere down the line you've compromised on your learning and now you're trying to memorize it. And when you've memorized it, you've given, it's like a game of chance then. It's either right or wrong. So what you're trying to ask is whether the questions that you solve are, is it basically concept, is it actually, are they testing us based on the knowledge, or you're just what you're exactly asking me, whether have I learned it or properly. They're going to test that, of course they're going to test that. And that's the whole point of testing you, right? If you know the concepts well.
Vedant, I just want to add one thing. You know, so CFA, no, because if you're writing CFA US exam, there are two exams you have to give, right? Not one. So they really check your concept. By fluke, if you answer correctly in the first exam, they may tweak the question again and try to test the knowledge. If you're not able to clear the second one, right, the second exam, so obviously that's a secret how they grade you, but they don't give the marks. So that's something which is very important if you're writing the CF exam. CMA US exam is something where again is They ask the conceptual questions. If you know the concepts very well, obviously you can answer, because even if you solve thousands question also, you might get some new question. That's why when we solve the MCQ type of question, I tweak the question 3 to 4 times. And why I tweak the question 3 to 4 times? So that you can understand the concepts rather than memorize the answer. Yes.
Thank you, Namrata. Thank you, sir.
Anyone? Before we conclude today's this one interview, then will be those who are planning to learn valuation, they may continue even for the part 1 students also, if they want to, because valuation is something which is very important. Once you learn the valuation, because what actually I am going to teach you is not only the theory but the practical side also. Practical side means after learning the valuation, you should be able to evaluate any company. So whether it is the Infosys versus Wipro, Infosys versus SEL Technology, you should be able to know. So my efforts will be to teach you a practical side also, right? Any questions before we just conclude this interview session?
Yes, sir, please. Hello,
Yeah.
Namrata.
Hello.
Yeah, I have a question that do they give questions regarding to the weightage they have given in the Wiley? Like section A is a 15% like that.
Well, if they've given you a blueprint that certain sections are going to have a certain weightage, so of course those questions are going to be appearing more on your exam day, right? So if section A was given 50% weightage, then obviously more of section A questions would appear on my exam paper. So the blueprint that they've given you, that okay, this particular section has only 20% weightage, you cannot neglect it. I'm not saying neglect it, but it has less importance. So you can give importance to the 50% more, but give a little. I mean, I don't mean to say give less importance to 20%, but they are going to appear. More of financial statement analysis will appear if that's given 50% weightage according to the blueprint. So do not neglect any weightage, but at the same time work more on the sections that have a lot of weightage.
So one thing I just want
Yeah,
to add, Geeta, actually, see, sometimes they ask the question which are topics are connected. So, for example, if the 20% weight is there, example, say financial statement analysis and the corporate finance, so they may ask one question which will test your two concepts, ratio analysis as well as the corporate finance. I just want to tell you. So sometimes you don't get surprised that sometimes you feel that I don't think so. This question they are asked, they are assigned the more weight, but sometimes they combine the concepts. That's why when I teach, actually, if you remember, sometimes I go back and make sure that you understand the other concepts also. So that's very important that you should know how to connect the dots.
And also the mocks that you give, right? Whether it's from Wiley or Hawk or whatever mocks you give. So even though when you are giving those mocks, don't expect those kind of questions to appear on your exam day. They will be similar, but they're going to be different. So if you are going with confidence that okay, I've done this, these are the only questions or these are the only type of questions that are going to come, and then you might you actually will see the face of terror when the exam up when the paper appears, because the questions are going to be different. So the questions are going to be different, and you have to go with that mindset that they're testing my concept. They're not testing whether I was able to answer it in the mock or not.
Yeah. So I think that Janvi has raised the hand. Janvi, please unmute and ask the question.
Oh, yeah. So, hi, Namrata, Janvi this side.
Hi.
So, just wanted to ask if, like, you said that you attempted the second part first. So,
Yeah.
as in, any suggested way, as in, you should attempt the first part or the second part first, or it was purely on like your preparation, and are the part connected? Like, this is the first time I'm actually, I have not even started the preparation for CMA. I'm looking forward to, enroll for the CMA. So, just wanted to ask.
Okay. So that was, honestly speaking, what I've been told by a lot of students and by my mentor was that part two is tricky. So once you're done with part two, and it's also small, if you see, the part two syllabus is smaller than part one. So the moment you actually end up doing part two, you're actually very comfortable. But actually, you need to be very well prepared to give part two. because if you are not prepared, if you don't get through, I mean, God forbid you don't get through, you're going to have this fear instilled inside you that okay, I couldn't get through this exam. And part 2 or part 1, both of them are equally hard. There is nothing as such. If one is tricky, the other is easy, but it's very lengthy. So it purely depends on how comfortable you are. But I gave part 2 because I found the topics interesting, so I gravitated more towards part 2 questions because it was pure interest. Honestly, I was very interested in contribution margins and decision making and all of that, because my mind works more on that better than these kind of questions. So it depends on how you want to go with it. And also, if you're a college student and if it's too hectic for you, if you can give in the time, because I had the liberty of getting done with college at 12, so I could give in time. But if you don't, then maybe you can give part 1. It's lengthy, but it's easy. It depends on what attracts you more.
Say again, I just want to add, if your financial accounting is good, because if you see the section A, which is nothing but a financial accounting, that is weight is 20%, budgeting is there, then performance management is there, then you have technology and analytics. These are the topics are there, right? Cost accounting is there. So obviously, if you are well versed with all financial accounting, cost accounting, then you should write part 1 then, right? If you are basically if you are thinking that the real cream is part 2, which is nothing but the management accounting, right? Why we are learning financial accounting, cost accounting? Because if you don't know financial accounting and cost accounting, how you can analyze the financial performance of the company, right? Obviously, the part 2 is interesting, as Namrata said, but tricky. So if you don't want to take any chance, obviously prefer part 1. And definitely, if you know part 1 very well, then part 2 is somewhat connected also, let me tell you. So for example, when I teach part 2 also, I have to again teach part 1, the relevant concepts. So if you clear part 1, then obviously it's easy for you to part 2 also. That is my, but again, up to you. Actually, you go to the topics and see whether you are liking the part 2 topics or part 1 topics, and accordingly you should start.
Yeah, also, the number of times I've mentioned tricky, it's tricky because it's actually tricky, and you don't have to get scared of it. Just start early and don't procrastinate, because most of the time we just give up on procrastination, honestly speaking. So, and see, and don't give the exam just for the sake of getting that qualification in hand. Just study for the sake of learning something out of it. So you'll gravitate towards one of the parts more, and that'll help you decide what you want to go for.
And there are sometimes students have perception that the part 2 result is very high. Yes, part 2 result is compared to part 1 is compared to high. And one of the reasons is that when I found out that most of the students, they write first part 1, right? So once they clear part 1, they know the technique, exam technique, so they can clear part 2. So obviously, don't have, so perception is that okay, part 2 is very easy result, you are getting high result, so let me write part 2 first and then part 1. I think that if you are college going students, right, I think so I prefer that you write part 1. There are many, if you are for example, you are working professional, then I think so better you write part 2 first. That is again, because the if you write part 2, for example, common sense is extremely, it's very important that you understand the concepts, because when you are working professional, you have habit of learning logic side. So that is, if you see the part 2, most of the part 2 questions are basically logical, right?
Vaishnavi has question.
Anyone?
Vaishnavi,
yeah.
Hi Namrata, congratulations.
Hi Vaishnavi.
Sorry, so my question was, I understand that part 1 is told to be lengthy, but it's easy compared to part 2. But when we talk about it being easier compared to part 2, is it that it is going to have more of a direct questioning, or is it going to not have much linkage of topics, or is it going to be only application based, not tricky? So I didn't understand the definition of that word less tricky in part 1. Like I know part 2 where like sir said, they interconnect topics and they ask you more application-based questions rather than direct. But how is it going to be in part one? Is it going to be easier in the sense that whatever is there in the textbooks, so little more application towards it and that's all, or is it going to actually be linkage of a lot of topics, and what is tricky, less tricky in part one?
So, of course, you're giving a professional exam, right? So it does not mean they're going to ask you direct questions. And I think he's also mentioned that there was in part one, while giving an example, for example, if financial statement analysis is connected to corporate finance, there is linkage. It's not possible that the topics won't have linkage. The fact being is, it won't be too twisted, is what I'm saying. The
In part
questions,
one.
yeah, in part one, it's not going to be too twisted. So if I'm asked to see a budgeting question, if there's it's a huge paragraph that I have, and the answer is simple as, calculate this budget, calculate, 2000 units are there, I have to calculate the flex budget of this. It's simple. Is it difficult? It's not difficult. You just need to see what they're asking, and the entire thing is just solved.
Okay, so that's how part one to be approached.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not, in no way it's going to be direct. You're giving a professional exam, right?
No,
They're not
not
going to give you the
definitely, but
degree
like
just like
part
that.
two is more complicated.
Yeah,
So I want to
Vaishnavi,
understand.
I just want to add here, Vaishnavi, if you
Yes,
see
sir.
the financial accounting, right, external
Mhm.
financial reporting is a US gap actually, right? If you see the US gap is a rule-based accounting. Now, if you know the rules, you can easily answer question, right? Now, budgeting again is a straightforward. You can predict the question paper also, right? Because all the important concepts they are asking. Whereas if you see the part two, no, sometimes you may find anyway you clear part two, you must be knowing, what they ask basically they tweak the question, and obviously if you know the concept, then you can answer. But in case of part one, you should know the rules. For example, financial accounting is the rules. No doubt, cost accounting is basically you need a practice, is a concepts. But technology analytics is theory again, right?
Yes.
If you study more, you will get more marks. Right?
Yes.
Technology analytics means what actually? What you should know what is blockchain, artificial intelligence, and stuff like that. So obviously, then you have internal control. Now, internal control is basically again you read more and more stuff. Definitely, you'll get the answer. So obviously, I feel that the correlation between the your efforts and the marks you will get a high correlation compared to the part two. So obviously, a good thing that you cleared the part two, Vaishnavi. That's what actually management accounting. Given a choice, I would have suggest IMA or ICMA US that first you should write part one and then part two.
Okay.
And even when we gave part two, Vaishnav, if you remember, there were questions on ethics, right? So they gave you a scenario, and even though it was theoretical MCQ based questions in ethics, they give you a scenario, and you have to see whether that was ethical and what form, what type of ethics was it, right? So it was tricky in a way where it's not what you feel is right, but it is what is actually right according to the ethical standards. So that made it a little tricky when it came to ethics. So in that case, this won't be here because, like Sir said, if it's blockchain, you need to know what blockchain is to even answer something about blockchain. So it's very direct that way.
So the topics and concepts itself is like that.
And for part two students, please understand that ethics is something which you should learn, you should master it, because they have not disclosed that if you don't get a sufficient mark in ethics section, they may fail you also, because they want ethical person, let me tell you, and that's a secret. You should, and anyway, even if you see the ethics questions, they are very easy, and please focus. These are all your low hanging fruits. You should master it, and you should score 100% mark in ethics, because that is a secret, I can tell you, that learn ethics, score 100% marks. Obviously, you may not find very difficult, let me tell you, it's a straightforward, right? Any other questions?
I need to ask with you, sir. Sir, can I ask you? Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, what about writing both the parts at a time, like part one and part two?
See, fantastic. So basically, you can write part one and part two, both the parts. So obviously, if you are confident and if you are scoring good marks, that is, I'm talking about the mock score. If you are getting good marks, obviously you should write both the parts. It's not easily possible. So don't worry about that. So, Harry, one thing is very important. You know very well the part one strategy is different than part two strategies. So, part one strategy is that more you learn, more you solve the mock test. Obviously, you get more marks because this is something which is a, say for example, you should know lease accounting, you should know the all the external financial reporting standards, right? Difference between IFRS and US GAAP. Budgeting should be very easy for you. Let me tell you, is logical, right?
Yeah.
And we have performance management. I never told you to memorize any formula. You know very well. So you should be able to answer any questions. Performance management, standard costing,
Standard
right?
costing, purchase
Cost
department.
accounting. Cost accounting again is a conceptual. You can predict the question easily. We have process costing. We have, I can tell you one definite question you can get from absorption costing versus marginal costing, right? Variable costing. So obviously, it should not be difficult. But again, I can tell you one thing that please don't ignore the other two topics like technology analytics and the internal control. I've seen many students, they ignore internal control, but don't ignore. I know that most of the students, they're finding internal control difficult, not difficult but boring basically. Yeah, Namrata, what your experience?
I found technology very boring. I couldn't sit through technology at all. But what I saw is that I gave a mock test without doing technology at all because I thought that, okay, what's there in technology? I can answer it like that. But you will actually lose out on a lot of marks. And I felt that technology appeared so many times because when you have not done something and when that appears in your mock test, the number of times you've seen, I mean, you feel that okay, this is coming a lot of times. So even though they've given less weightage, it is going to appear a lot of times because if you've not done it, it's going to terrorize you the entire paper in the entire 3 hours. So each and everything is important, even technology, even if it's boring, you have to do it.
Yeah. No, it's not boring actually. I'll tell you. If you understand say for example, blockchain. I in fact I take a lot of lectures. If you see only one paragraph blockchain, I'm taking the even 4 5 lectures on blockchain. So you can refer my recordings also where I have taken the lectures because I have basically taken the content from the AICPA, which is really very good. Even I got a lot of experience also in technology. So basically, you can go through my lectures, you get some additional knowledge also. Even the theory type of question you can add. So that's why I always say, tell to all the students that whenever you write something where the paper checker learns from you, you will get more marks, right?
So guys, if it's technology, then you know who to listen because I just did textbook and it was too boring. So if that helps, then you can only listen to the live lectures for that.
Yeah. Fine then. Anything else? You have question?
Yes, I do have
Yeah.
one.
Can you be louder then?
Yeah, so you were mentioning in the part one, it would mostly the US GAAP standards, right?
Not only US GAAP. US GAAP is 20%,
Okay.
right? The other budgets is there. Then we have the performance management, that is called standard costing. Then we have cost accounting. Then we have internal control, and then we have technology and analytics.
Do we also have a part of IFRS?
IFRS is there covered in section A.
Okay.
So what is the difference between IFRS and US GAAP? So you are lucky in CPA. Basically they have removed IFRS.
Okay.
CMA, so basically main objective of covering IFRS to find out the difference between the IFRS and US GAAP. For example, in India, we are using IFRS, right? IFRS is an accounting language, right? Whereas US GAAP is another accounting language. So when we prepare the consolidation of financial statement, right? Say for example, Colgate India Limited, and then we have Colgate US Limited, right? Colgate US is a parent company. So Colgate India Limited, they have to translate the financials to Colgate US, right? So obviously that time, first of all, whatever accounts you have prepared, financial statement you prepared, you have to convert into from the US GAAP, from the Indian GAAP to US GAAP. Indian GAAP is basically the IFRS. So you should know, if you know IFRS, your demand is very high in India, not in US. Demand is very high in India because when you join Colgate India or you join any multinational company, obviously you have to convert. You become a translator. You have to convert from the US GAAP, from the IFRS to US GAAP. So demand is very high, right? I'll tell you when my experience when we used to hire people for the consideration purpose. After one season, right, they get a double salary. outside. I'm telling you, demand is very high. Very few people knows now how to do the consolidation.
Also a follow-up question.
Can you be louder, because they
Okay.
can hear?
So for a working professional,
Yeah.
if I'm doing 9 hours of shift or a 10-hour shift, how much time would one need to allow or allocate? For example, 4 hours or 5 hours in a day.
2 hours daily.
Okay, 2 hours.
Yeah. Then see, I'll tell you again. Smart learning is very important. For example, say example of Namrata, right? Now, she took only 1 month, right? So it is possible. People have perception that more they solve the questions better. Yeah, it's better. But one thing is very important. You should understand the concepts. For example, when we solve the question, we tweak the question 4-5 times, because same to same question you will not get, right? Fine then. So thank you, Namrata, for your time. Yeah, this is really useful, and obviously we will reconnect again.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll be continuing with what is the time now? Actually, it's a 12:40. But anyway, let me start with the valuation. Valuation is very important topic for all of you. So you understand the concepts valuation, right? So you can become an analyst, fundamental analyst, for example. And way I will teach, actually, first of all, logically, we'll try to find out, evolve the formulas, because I'll tell you one thing: don't memorize. I don't have our philosophy is that that you should understand the logic first. Once you understand the logic, you can do valuation without any problem, right? So we'll be starting the first step, very basic steps, right? What is valuation, how we are going to do the valuation. Yeah. So how you are going to do the valuation? Let's start with the very basic. For example, say for example Infosys Limited, right? So if you see the Infosys in 90s, right? I still remember 90s. It was price was like so very high. It was like 100 times of earning. 100 times of earning. So if the earning per share is say $10, it was $1,000. Like it's 100 times. Today, if you see the Infosys, it is multiple is 14-15 times. Then now you can see the difference. Now, why so much difference, right? Why the investor and analyst, the 90s I'm talking about, where they put 100 times. Now, if you see the today's world, Dixon technology. I don't know whether you are aware of Dixon technology. All the mobiles instrument, most of the mobiles manufactured in India is basically by Dixon technology. Say for example, Samsung outsourced to Dixon, Apple outsourced to Dixon. So what I'm saying that Dixon technology is something which is they are doing great, and their earning is growing at a rate of 80-90% growth rate. So your valuation is always depends upon the growth rate, right? Higher the growth rate, higher the multiples, because it's like if your net profit doubles every year, so definitely that script commands higher PE multiples. What is PE multiples? Earning per share multiplied by number of times. For example, if I say 15 PE multiples, it means what? Market price of the stock divided by earning per share. Earning per share means every share how much I am earning, right? So obviously the PE multiple depends upon the growth rate. If you're growing, if you're doubling your company every 1 year, 2 year, obviously, definitely, because your P multiple next year P multiple will be half, right? Because your earning doubles basically. So obviously, so your valuation of company depends upon basically the growth rate. Remember that. So if the growth rate is slowing down, if it is slowing down, your valuation also comes down. So that's a basic thing about the valuation. So obviously we'll be learning the valuation techniques, right? So valuation techniques means the first model, which is very basic model first of all, is a dividend growth model. So dividend growth model, obviously they are talking about that dividend growth. that at the end of the day, what exactly you are getting? I am getting dividends from the company, right? Which is a cash dividend I'm getting, right? Definitely, if earning is growing, my dividend also will grow, right? So if the dividends I'm growing, now you have to also understand one thing, that what is the life of the company? Infinite, unless and until company files a bankruptcy, right? But it's not that human being that okay fine, the mortality rate, the your age will be won't be more than 100 years. It's like that, 78 you can predict 80 years. Can you predict company's life? No. Company can survive life because new shareholders will come in, old shareholders will go away. So company life, it means that it is nothing but summation of, let me switch on the AC. 1 minute. Yeah. So life of the company is infinite, right? What you will get the dividends also for the infinite period, right? So how you can value the company then? You can value the company is a summation of all future dividends. Say for example, today I'm purchasing the stock. I'll be getting next year dividend, next to next year dividend, and so forth. So it's nothing but it is a summation of all future dividends. Now this model, why it is not so popular, that also I'll tell you. Okay, for the first, this is starting point. All the valuation model also based upon the same logic, right? So that is a summation of all the dividends, right? So we'll discuss that, how to evolve the formula. Next time I'll do it. But first of all, you should know that your valuation company depends upon the future value of all the dividends, right? And dividend is growing, right? Second thing is that there are many, so the criticism comes that you are only, the valuation depends upon the dividends. If the company is not paying dividend, why they are not paying the dividend? Because sometimes company feels that if I reinvest the money, 100% money, my return will be much more if I pay you to say dividend. Where you will invest? Maybe fixed deposit, right? Fixed deposit will generate how much? 6 to 7%. Whereas company is generating 30-40% return. They invest in the business, and business is generating higher return. Obviously, I will definitely tell the company, don't pay dividend. You retain and multiply our wealth. Okay, if you see the most of the US companies, they don't pay dividend. There are two reasons are there. The two reasons. The first reason is that first of all, the return on investment, ROI, return on investment, whatever money they invest in the business, they generate higher return compared to the shareholders invest in the other instrument. Number one thing. Second thing, dividend is taxable. Sometimes double taxation. So company pays the tax, net profit after tax. Again, they distribute dividend. Dividend is taxable. Shareholders is required to pay the tax, right? It's become double taxation, sometimes triple taxation. So obviously, the return is not good basically if you pay dividend. But some shareholders definitely they would like to have a dividend, because I have seen many companies they don't pay the dividend, right? That's a sign that companies should at least reward their shareholder. The company comes out with a buyback rather than paying dividend. Company comes out with a buyback. Even buyback also you are giving back money to shareholder. So if you see the Infosys, for example, Infosys, TCS, every once in a 2 year or 3 year, the cash is piling up. They are not able to generate the return, right? So what they do actually, they will do the buyback, buying back their own share. So they pay the money to shareholder and buy. It is a one type of paying dividend only. It's like that. It's not a dividend. It's buying back. That means you calculate capital gain, long-term capital gain. Dividend is taxable 30%. This is basically you are paying 15% or 10%. Long-term capital gain is 10%. So obviously, I'm just telling that how the company is planning. And second advantage of buyback is that you can increase your earning per share, because when you calculate the earning per share, what is that? Net income available to shareholder divided by outstanding shares. Moment you reduce your outstanding shares denominator, your EPS jump. This is a secret weapon of financial controller. Anyway, I'll teach you, don't worry. But today's point of view, I just want to tell you that valuation of company, please don't miss my class. Number one thing I'm telling you, because we will not cover only the theoretical part, but we'll go beyond, right? We will dividend is something which is not popular. Then we say earning per share. We use the earning per share. That earning per share, if you get infinity, there is we use the mathematics. Sometimes people say, no, what is the use of mathematics? You must have learned mathematics, but we will apply here mathematics. Is a summation of the EPS infinite times. There is a formula, that summation of infinite series. How to calculate? I'll do it. In textbook, actually, basically, they have just given the formula. Right? We don't want to memorize formula. Right? We will evolve the formula, and I'll teach you how to calculate the intrinsic value of the company using the income approach. It's called income approach. Right? So dividend is still, it is not, there are a lot of deficiencies. For example, if company is not paying dividend, how you can value the company? So we switch over from dividends to earning per share. Now again, the problem comes that the earning per share is nothing but a net income, right? Company started manipulating the net income, right? For example, you have non-operating gains and losses is added, right? Suppose if I sell land, it is added. Are you going to sell the land forever, infinite? No, valuation becomes problem. So then they say that rather than earning per share, it is better to use cash flow. Can you manipulate cash book? No. So analysts, all the analysts, I'm telling you, right? They prefer cash flow, free cash flow, right? So free cash flow, infinite series, we can compute the valuation using the income approach. It's called income approach. That different methods are there. Income approach, market approach, cost approach. So this is income approach. Income approach means what? Whatever cash flow generated by the company. What we'll do actually, we will do the valuation, with the help of three methods. Dividend model, that's called Gordon growth model. Second method is earning per share, and third is the cash flow. We'll see the difference, what exactly we are getting, right? And then whatever we are doing the valuation, this is the retail valuation. When you see the market capitalization of company, what is market capitalization? Outstanding shares multiplied by market price. Right? Just now I'm just giving the flavor. Don't worry, we'll discuss in detail. Don't worry about it. Because today I just want to do spend some time. So remember one thing, that market valuation, market capitalization is nothing but a retail valuation. But when you acquire the company, you have to pay the control premium. You have to pay, it's like, when I'm acquiring the company, I'm going to pay some extra money to promoter to acquire the 51%. So obviously that is called control premium. That also we'll see that, because obviously when you merge the company, for example, right, you get a synergy benefit, right? You get a synergy benefit, right? You'll be saving cost, right? And obviously you can take the advantage of brand also, right? Anyways, so next time please don't miss the lecture. I am traveling actually, but definitely I'll let you know about the lecture time. But don't miss the valuation lecture, right? We'll definitely cover all the methodologies, and definitely you will enjoy also, right? Chalo, thank you very much.